be able to provide the list of our preferred election judges for our polling locations. But if there are changes, if they make the changes, then we will let you know. But, so before you tonight is a resolution to appoint those election judges as you have previously appointed for the last few years. Item 4C is a resolution approving Economic Development Corporation recommendation for a design incentive sign grant. This is to a business, Lady Love Tax Service. This is an amount not to exceed $1,431. This was as part of their sign grant program, provides for up to 70% of the lowest of 3 bids. And the EDC unanimously recommended approval of that grant. And then item 4D is a resolution authorizing the purchase of a new aerial bucket truck, cab and chassis from Rockville Country Ford. This is through the buy board. This is budgeted in the city's fleet replacement fund. The Traffic and Signals Division has 2 bucket trucks. This one will replace the 2003 truck, and the cost includes the truck and chassis as well as the lift module. And there are, with that, those are all of the items on the consent agenda.
Okay, thank you. All right, so now moving on to item 2A, discuss opportunities for a signature community event. Mr. Stevens, do we have a guest?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll introduce our guest. Thank you. We're here tonight to continue our discussion that we started back on December 3rd regarding the future of the Barbecue and Blues or a signature event here in Duncanville. At that time, you asked that we come back and talk to you a little bit more, talk about specifics, talk about some of the information we heard from our consultant, and I brought our consultant with us tonight. This is Jerry Thompson. He is with Promoter Line. Promoter Line has been here in the DFW area for 20 plus years. They do small and big special events all over the country, including sporting events. He most recently was involved with both of the bowl games here in Dallas and Fort Worth, and has been involved in the past with the Grape Fest Cup events, Mesquite, Bedford, Flower Mound, and numerous other big signature events around the Dallas-Fort Worth area. So he also does a lot of sporting events, including bike races. So he's a big biker, and does that all over the country. Before we move forward, I guess getting into more specifics, I guess from a higher level, we want to get a couple of acknowledgments from our discussion on December 3rd. And one is, does the city want to host a large community signature event? And I think what I heard, and I just want to verify that was a yes. I know there was some concern or some thoughts about possibly doing smaller events, and I do want to remind the council that we do have funding in our general fund budget for recreation to do several concerts in the park series, as well as movies in the park. So we will be doing some smaller events within our parks, and we'd like to grow those events as well as we move forward in the next budget cycle. So we are looking at doing some smaller events too. That's something we've heard from our community, both in the most recent Park Master Plan update, as well as some of the budget hearings, is our community wants more big special events. I think you guys talked about that at your council retreat as well. So first, I just want to acknowledge that yes, we want to do a signature event, and we do need to know that information fairly quickly because we have to get back to KCBS if we want to continue the barbecue portion of that event that was done by the Lions Club, the Barbecue and Blues.
Must it be a 2-day event?
If we want to use hot funds, yes, it must be a 2-day event.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So can do a 1-day event, but we'd have to use general fund dollars for that or some other funding source.
Well, what's the rule on that?
You have to put heads into there's a 2-step rule. The heads and beds is the big one.
Got it.
Yeah. Jessica's here. I'm looking around for her. Where is she? There she is. The heads and beds is the big one. Yeah. Yeah. So that's why you hit that overnight. So, and then the time of the year for the event, I know in the past couple of years, the Lions Club has hosted their event in the fall. October was the last couple of years. And we'll probably look to continue that, and if that is something that you want to continue, say yes to. For this fiscal year, we do have funding in the budget from the hot fund budget for a large special event. And if we were to do that for this year, we were looking at September timeframe. So is that kind of all, we're on the same page? Yes.
When do you need an answer about the KCBS thing?
We need to know mid-January, so tonight.
I mean, like now or after?
By the end of January, I think.
By end of January, yes. We need to know whether that's something you want as a component.
Is that going to be part of what you're going to help us with?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And you've been involved with those guys before? is that
We
correct?
have, yeah, through the city of Mesquite. We were involved in our signature event for several years, and the barbecue competition was part of that entire event.
Oh, okay. I just didn't know if we needed to make that decision about that before we heard that or after we heard.
Sometime in the next couple weeks.
It's, yeah, what our thought was, we would bring back a resolution on the next council meeting with whatever direction y'all have tonight, so that we can make sure that it's formalized and we have clear direction on how we're moving forward.
Okay.
Also, in front of, I failed to mention that, in front of you, I put in the slides from the last meeting as well. So if you want to refer back to anything we talked about on December 3rd, I put that in front of you. This is the one page we really want to focus on. There's some kind of more of the details as to some things I brought up, I know, in that discussion on December 3rd, and y'all had some questions about it or wanted some more discussion. That's why we brought Jerry in today to clarify some of these recommendations that he made when we met with him previously. The first being the theme and the music genre. And one thing that Jerry talked to us about was the blues, and I'll let you expand upon that a little bit.
So if you look at a signature event through cities that we've worked with in the past, and it's been a host of cities that we continue to work with, towns and cities. When I first got to meet with Bart and his team, he mentioned the blues and barbecue, and wanted to get my input on it, and you know where I come from my experience. And blues itself, the music genre of blues, isn't as popular as it used to be. It used to be a lot bigger, and it would be hard pressed for anyone to find a blues festival anywhere in the country that continues today and has a success that other music or festival, community type, city type, town type events have. And so in order to be diverse and appeal to ages 1 to 100 and the community and your citizens, people have really looked at the type of music that they're bringing to their events, and so they want to be diverse with it and try to appeal to all of them and not just be focused on blues. A perfect example, Eric Clapton used to have a blues festival that happened at the Cotton Bowl for several years. They don't do that anymore. They were not successful. You take Eric Clapton, one of the biggest blues artists out there, had ZZ Top, Buddy Guy, a host of other blues artists. They couldn't sell enough tickets to make it work. Of course, their exposure is much greater than we're talking about here, but just trying to give you the scope of large to small, the blues genre isn't as popular as it used to be. So the successful events that you see these days, they have a diverse lineup, whether it be country, rock, jazz, pop, Hispanic, and they try to hit all the genres to appeal to the community, because you want to get back to your citizens. That's the ultimate goal with the cities that we work with. They want to be able to appeal to everyone, you know, like I said, ages 1 to 100, and not just be so focused and narrow in your scope of trying to attract the citizens that you're trying to attract. So if you just say it's blues and barbecue, it really narrows your scope. And when they asked me my personal opinion, I told them I wouldn't do the event if it was blues and barbecue. I wouldn't risk the money. I wouldn't risk the marketing effort and the time that it takes, you know, from a safety, public safety standpoint, police and fire and everyone involved in it. My professional opinion would not be to do the event if you were going to focus just on the blues and barbecue. I really think you'd struggle to have success with that.
Unless, of course, Stevie Ray Vaughan was still around.
If he was still alive, we'd be talking about something different. Yes, ma'am.
Still in love with it. Ray Vaughan, are you kidding? Don't admit that to anybody.
So one thing, if we do move forward, is again, we probably look for more of a diverse lineup when it comes to music, to try to, again, as Jerry said, to meet the needs and the desires and wants and wishes of all our citizens, and not just one segment. So, let's talk about charging admission. I know there's some discussion about that in December. Again, kind of using Jerry's expertise on these types of matters. This size of event, typically they're not charged admission, and so you want to speak to that?
Sure. The events we're currently involved with the cities, they're free to the public, free to the citizens. Your bigger events that are spending top dollar for top entertainment, they're charging. I.e., you have Great Fest. We were involved in both Great Fest and Main Street Days for 20 years. And it became competing with our out-of-town events because, like Bart was saying, we do events all over the United States. And they charge, everyone thinks, oh, you got to pay to get into Great Fest. They don't start charging until Friday at 5 p.m. And they only charge on Friday night and Saturday night and then Sunday during the day. They don't charge on Thursday, and they don't charge all day on Friday. But at the same time, the amount of money they're spending on entertainment, you can charge if you have that big budget and you're going to spend $100,000 or greater just on your entertainment. That's what's going to drive the gate admission. I would rather see, and it is my suggestion, that you get the people there, it's free to the public, you still control, you know, if you have wine and beer, you still have a fence, you still control the access points, not only for public safety, but also for alcohol. But in addition to, if you're going to try to get $5 or $6 out of someone at the gate, you're probably going to let kids in free. They're going to come in and they're going to buy food and beverage anyway. So when you find out you're really giving a lot of tickets away just to get people to your event, but you're not charging admission to get them in. Another perfect example, we were involved with the South Lake Oktoberfest for 10 years. You didn't charge there, but the food and beverage revenue more than made up for what you were trying to get off of gate revenue. So gate revenue is kind of a touchy thing, especially on a non-traditional venue. And in our world, a non-traditional venue is a park where you put up a fence and you build a venue and you get people to come there versus an arena, a stadium, or something like that is used to selling tickets and people are used to paying to get into that particular venue. So the free event is what's going to, you know, enable you to give back to your citizens, not only in Duncanville, but the surrounding communities here, for the reach out and the broad scope of marketing that you hope to enhance the people to come. So you've got this free signature event, the fall of 2020, and here's what's so great about it. And then you list your laundry list of things, and you don't trip over, you're going to charge them to get in, which instantly is a real drawback, especially for a first-time event. This event, my understanding, didn't happen last year, and I know it got rained out 2 of 4 years in the history of it, but you want to give something back to the community. Not only you want your citizens to come, but you want to be proud of it at the same time, too.
So Jerry touched on it also, the beer and wine availability. And it's something that y'all approved, the council approved for the barbecue and blues event, and we would want to continue that as well again, to make that available, make it more appealing to the public. Touched on a little bit of sponsorships. You know, a lot of people, when they come into these types of events, they immediately think, oh, well, sponsorships can just pay for it all. That's not really reality. We want to make sure we give you a realistic look as to what that looks like if you want us to go after sponsorships. And we will, and we can, but we don't anticipate being able to get enough sponsors to pay for the event. So we want to set that tone up front and not give any kind of false expectations.
Yeah, how much is it?
What are we looking for?
We're looking at about $150,000, $125,000 to $150,000 for a 2-day event. That was something, again, that Jerry, using his expertise on these types of events, would recommend for the level of talent that we'd be looking at music-wise as well.
And the large children's area that's up there too. Again, that gets back to the community, what you're able to give back. I mean, you have a large children's area, so your only focus isn't music. You try to build, with a successful event, a big buffet table. So you appeal in different areas to different people. They may only come for the kids area, that's great. They may not stay for the band that plays late at night. And so really to have the resources to put on that type signature event, that's where the dollar amount came from.
So that 125 to 150K includes police, fire,
That's correct, sir.
all staff hours,
Consultant.
Turnkey.
Consultant.
turnkey.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
And to put that in perspective, we spent a little over $100,000 on the 4th of July, which is a 4-hour event.
Well, that includes fireworks too.
And that's what you do. Instead of fireworks, you're spending the money on talent.
So 150,000, is there income? I mean, is it?
Sure.
or the
Beer,
vendors just
wine,
get the income?
vendors.
Beer, wine, and food.
Yeah,
The vendors
and
get that though.
For example,
We get
So
some
you get a cut.
portion of it, yeah.
we produce the Town of Flower Mound July 4th event, which attracts approximately 20,000 people a year, very large event. And we bring in a third-party alcohol vendor to the event. and they pay the town back a percentage of the sale. So that's a revenue generator. And then we also secure the vendors for the event, whether it be the food vendors, the arts and crafts, those type vendors, and they pay a fee to be at the event, and that's another, not large, but another small revenue stream that comes back to the city.
So 150 after that comes back, that's still what it costs?
It is.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Important, you said you go after the vendors.
That's correct. We would secure
So our
them.
staff doesn't have to spend time doing that?
They do not. No, that would be part of our agreement.
Yeah, and that's one of the benefits of really having a professional company such as
That's
Jerry.
the true turnkey aspect.
And he has a list this long of vendors he can call on, where, we don't have near that kind of resources in our staff, to be able to know that many people who would be interested in coming. So we can reach out to 10 people, he can reach out to 1,000 people, that type of thing. So I think we've talked about everything on here. Again, the return on investment, again, it kind of goes back to the whole sponsorship thing, and want to make sure that it's clear that we can't pay for it through sponsorships, and we're not going to make money, but this is really a quality of life event, an opportunity to give back to our citizens, something they've been asking for, something you guys talked about, I know, at your last retreat. So with that, I'll open up to questions, comments, direction.
But you feel we can partially pay for, I know you can't quantify it tonight, but the income from alcohol and food is going to contribute to our overall cost reduction in some way.
Take off from the 150?
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't want to paint this picture that we're talking $50,000 in revenue that you're going to get from food and beverage and vendors. You're looking more in the $10,000 to $20,000 range as far as revenue that you can achieve from those various entities that I suggest.
Okay, that's what I'm looking for.
Did that answer your question?
Realistic offset.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
And you're not talking about a specific food, you're talking about many different vendors of different types.
Yeah, so for example, if I may, that you have a food vendor and you're going to charge them $500 to be here. You're renting space for $500, so they have to pay $500 to be here, and then you're going to provide the power and everything. But if you have 15 food vendors at $500, there's a revenue stream. And then you have your beverage seller that's going to sell the beer and wine, and you're going to get a percentage that third party would pay back to the city as part of an agreement with the city. That's another revenue stream. And then you're going to have your arts and crafts and other vendors. They won't pay $500 because they're not going to make money like a food vendor would. So approximately $150 they're going to pay for a booth. So all of those are incremental revenue streams that will come back to the city based on coming to the event. You're basically charging them to be part of the event.
Is there anything else you have? You have arts,
Yes.
you have the kids area.
Yes.
Is there anything else?
From
Well, and the music.
Mhm. As far as what we would actually do.
Entertainment or stuff people can look at.
Yeah, so through the vendors, I mean, you try to get a diverse, type of vendor. And then also, one thing we do at other city events is we let the nonprofits in, to benefit them, the nonprofits throughout the city and surrounding areas. But you do charge business vendors. Let's say you have an insurance company, or chiropractors spend a lot of money at events, I can tell you from history. So, they will pay rent to come to your event. So you try to make it, like I was getting back to the entertainment, that appeals to a very broad audience and age. You also try to base everything at the event to appeal to everyone. So you don't just have one thing that's your focus, you have several things. They may, as an attendee, they may not go and enjoy everything, but there's 2 or 3 things that they really did enjoy, and the rest of it they just had no desire to go to. So you really try to open up and, like I said, create a large buffet table with a lot of choices of things for them to do when they get here. And it can be as easy as getting like a Home Depot to come in and they have a coloring section for the little kids. Things like that are free for kids. And when the kids are there and the kids are happy, that's when the parents are spending the money on the food and the beverage.
And what kind of nonprofits have you
Well,
done before?
Everything from,
Build outreach.
yeah, I mean.
Well, I know what a nonprofit is. I'm saying.
Yeah,
his
501c3s.
experience.
So
Right.
501c3 or C6s,
Right.
depending on their status. But everything from church groups to community organizations, anything like that that has a message that they wish to convey to festival goers. So now you've created a captive audience for them, and they want to get in front of people. So it's, you know, nothing more than them handing you something and say, thanks for coming, and, you know, maybe come to our church sometime or something like that.
If the council wanted to engage with KCBS, how would the barbecue piece of that fit in with this?
The barbecue piece, our experience, we just had one we produced 2 bowls here locally for ESPN that Bart alluded to. And our Serve Pro First Responders Bowl that we just did at SMU Stadium last week had a barbecue component to it. The barbecue component ends up being a competition within that, but depending on the health department here, which we work closely with, you know, it's not something that, you know, the festival goers can go and buy the barbecue unless you set it up that way. It's more of a competition. It's a great group of people that do the barbecue section, and it's another element where they can see it. They can go up and talk to the people that are cooking it and ask them what they're using and the sauces and everything. But it's just another element. It's more of a visual, but yet it's a nice component to have, and it really complements everything else you're doing from the barbecue perspective.
But what about KCBS specifically?
So they require a fee, and I asked Bart about that because we're used to paying it. We paid it in Mesquite, and I know Jessica from Mesquite several years ago. And so they have a licensing fee. I don't know what it is currently.
Glasgow's paid that already, is that correct?
Have the full fee been paid, or? Okay, so they have a licensing fee that allows you to, and you can speak about it much more, you know, better than I could. I just know I have a history of setting it up and make sure they have plenty of space and their needs are taken care of it. Like I said, it's a nice compliment to have for the actual event itself.
Do we need KCBS as a formal competition, or do we just invite people to cook barbecue?
Well, KCBS is, I mean, it's an international organization
Yes.
that's designed for that. And they actually bring judges in.
Right, I understand.
They're part of the
But
organization.
do you recommend pursuing KCBS for this event?
I guess I would look at it the way I look at everything and seeing if it's from a cost perspective, and depending on what the final budget number ends up being, and see if what it would cost to have it there and what the complement would be. You know, is it a win-win from both sides? So
how are we gonna
I'm not
know
avoiding
before
that
the end?
question.
Well, how are we going to know before the end of January then?
I don't think we
You
are.
said,
I don't know.
well, we were just said we have to let them know by the end of January.
Well, to reserve the date.
To reserve the date.
That's all they want to do is reserve.
They just want a date.
Mayor, one of the things with an event like that, when you get national recognition, really what the win-win is for the community is that your event is promoted as well. So even though the barbecue, they're important, but because you have that national recognition, that's really where the win-win
Yeah.
comes in.
Yes.
KCBS is helping to promote
They are
them.
helping.
They are.
Because
Free
it's
of
their
charge.
event,
Yeah,
so-
and so you pay the, is
There's
it
a
a licensing
there's
fee?
a
How do they
expense
refer?
aspect.
That's not free.
You pay the licensing fee, and along with that fee that you're paying them, like I said, comes the resources. They have the global marketing, you know, of telling people to come to the Duncanville signature event, whatever the name ends up being.
And they're an international organization. They bring judges, they're people from England or Australia, as well as from other countries.
Yeah.
As well. So they're the ones staying in our hotels.
That's how I would say, there's a head and beds aspect to KCBS, and we wouldn't get just local people to the barbecue.
Right.
I think there brings some legitimacy to the competition as well.
Yeah, it does. It really puts a legitimate stamp on the barbecue event. So if you're going to do barbecue, I think you absolutely need to have them involved in it.
Okay.
Yes.
There's.
Does that answer?
There's the
Okay,
answer.
okay.
But then that gets right back to what I was asking. I said, so you're not gonna have specific food?
No, so the food,
Vendors
the
are just one
food
piece.
vendors that we would have that I suggested possibly, you know, charging $500 for is a wide range of different types of food. Not talking
Understand,
about the
but
barbecue
I'm just
competition.
questioning who goes to pay to look at food? Go to eat it.
Look at food trucks. Look
You
what
don't
happened.
go to look at it, you buy. You
Well, that,
eat
the
it.
vendors that we would secure would provide food for sale. That's where the vendors I'm talking about.
Right, I understand that. I'm
Okay.
saying,
And that's how the Lions had, there was actually other food vendors
right,
there as well.
I got it.
but
But the comments I heard, that was the problem, see, is that if they came to the barbecue, they were assuming they were gonna get some. They didn't get any.
Well, if they bought, there was a competition, and if they bought an additional wristband, they were able to do that.
But do you understand what I'm saying? You're
Yeah,
talking about
that's
they're
not the way
coming.
it's gonna go.
There was that
people's choice,
expectation
yeah.
too, because people paid for the tickets. So I think
Yeah,
there was
we're
that
not doing
expectation they were getting something
I
in return.
understand
That
that.
first year was, the second time they did it, as Councilman Rackburn had said, I know there was that separate cost or that wristband for the tastings, and I think that went pretty well. And that might be something then that we look at and explore with KCBS, is that we want to add that component to it, and then I'm assuming that that would kind of be a revenue stream, a small revenue stream as well. And because again, now, if you're talking about free admission, you know, people aren't going to have that expectation that they get free barbecue if they're going to go walk into a free event.
Yeah.
So we can do it if we choose.
From the safety perspective, you know, from July 4th, we put up a fence and we
Yes.
limited attendance to 12,000. What about that for the open or closed?
No, you'd have a fence, and not only for public safety, but also for the beer and wine aspect of it,
That's
so,
certainly,
yeah,
but-
but public safety first.
So
First
we're
and
still going to
foremost.
put up a fence?
Yes, sir.
We're still going to limit it to 12,000 per day, or?
We haven't talked about that number yet, but
That,
we
the
would. I
capacity
would say
number
yes.
hasn't been run by me at all, so
Yeah,
I'm
we
not,
haven't put
I'm
Our
not
police
familiar with that.
department came up with that number, I think, didn't y'all? 12,000, in terms of what you could adequately provide, well, I guess fire and police came up with 12,000 for what you could adequately provide safety and care for our citizens.
That's correct. Yeah. We wanted to ensure that, number one, we had ample security to control a certain number of people, and then you've got an enclosed area. How many people can safely be in that area?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think we would have a capacity issue.
No.
Well, I was just wondering if,
Yeah.
like, real best is if we're still going to have a fence. And the
We
answer
would
is
have a
yes, we're still
fence.
going to have a fence.
Yes.
And it's more of an in and out event versus
Right.
that's a come and stay.
Right, like the 4th of July.
Yeah, because there's no admission, you can come in and out anytime you want.
Well, like the 4th of July, I think it was saying is people are coming for that event. They're coming for the music and the fireworks, so they're there for that specific set period of time. Whereas this type of event, you would have the venue throughout the day,
Yeah.
acts, so people would be coming and going throughout. So you wouldn't have them all there
Yeah.
necessarily. I guess that's what you.
Yes.
So the fence is included in the turkey?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And another thing that I mentioned too, when you talk about capacity and the type of items, we're proactive with other cities we work with, so through parks and the scheduling of sports events is to make sure you give your baseball, softball, soccer, and all sports, you don't schedule them to play that weekend, so the parents are bringing the kids to the festival instead of having to go to the games and then come to the festival later. So it helps ensure the success of your community event that we're trying to, you know, put on. All those little things add up tremendously.
Okay.
So how do y'all promote the event then?
We don't do the marketing, that's not part of
That'd
it.
be good to see.
That'd be through the city. Yeah, marketing is not something we do.
Just you set it up.
We'd certainly give suggestions based on our experience, but we don't handle the marketing, that would go through the city itself.
I cracked up with one.
But we would market the Metroplex for this.
I would think so.
Certainly the southern sector for sure. Yeah.
And that would also help with
That's not
the, using the hotel motel dollars.
Yeah.
It has to be.
Marketing outside of the
Yeah.
convenience.
Yeah. Yeah. So, we do want KCBS.
Did we
do
just
want
say
to do
that?
this. Yeah, that's what he said.
No, he said
If you want to- if you want to
do a
do-
barbecue.
He said that they would add a good, strong component to the event if we had them here.
Yeah, I wouldn't do barbecue without them.
That's what he's saying. You would do barbecue with
Yeah.
that.
But would you not do barbecue if it was your event?
I think if you could, you know, figure out a way to do, like you said, the wristbands for the sampling, that really enhances what's going on with the barbecue portion of the event. I think that's a real key component of that. And we just did that at SMU, and that really added to it versus, you know, 40 different smokers out there cooking barbecue for 3 days that we had. The key component was they sold wristbands, and they had a long line of people before they even went into the stadium for the game. They got to sample a lot of different barbecue. I mean, not just one table of barbecue. That's what really enhanced us setting up this big area in the tailgate area.
The timing of the event, I think we talked about it before, about fall event.
Fall event.
And then the timing for this year, yeah,
September.
We're looking at September.
is that adequate time to plan it if we choose to do that?
You need to get going and make a decision to do it, but in addition to, for the actual time, you know, you would do a Friday from like 6 to 10, 6 to 11, whatever the hours are, but then Saturday, again, don't have your athletics running on that Saturday. That enhances the, you know, ability to be successful, and then you open it either 10 or 11 that morning and run till, you know, late that night. So that's how the hours of the event also.
So check the football schedule, make sure we're not doing that on a home game.
They'll be starting by September.
That's what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
we actually,
You have to do it summer.
I mentioned the high school football schedule, and they said it wasn't out yet, so that's one of the things we always look for too.
Yeah.
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 You'd have to do it in the summer if you don't want
No,
them to be
no, I'm saying we do it on an away game, not on a home game.
So
in
they can't be
September.
there?
Well, just the Friday night is what's impacted.
They typically have a bye week somewhere.
Maybe
Kinda
they're,
right
yeah,
in
if
there
there's
as
a
well.
bye week in September, that'd be better.
But we set our schedule, and we tell the school just wouldn't have the game.
Mr. Thompson, what my question is, in your experience for doing these events, and I'm looking at return on investment, are there any of them that profit or actually, that you actually profit? I mean, or is this just something that's going to go to the expense of the city?
It's going to go to the expense of the city. The profitable ones, Great Fest is profitable, but through their hotel motel tax, and they have a lot of hotels in Grapevine, they get a lot of it underwritten through that. They also have gas money there that helps pay for that festival. I know Tim from Grapevine, worked together years with him there in Grapevine, so it's a different element. From a city standpoint though, no, it's an event that you're giving back to the community. You're going to recoup some of the costs like we suggested, but no, you need to budget the money and figure out exactly what you're going to spend for the actual event. You're not going to get a full return on investment. No,
It's goodwill.
it is.
And what do you mean by gas money?
They get oil and gas money, helps pay for the
They have oil
Grapevine
and gas in
events.
Grapevine?
Yeah, because the DFW airport sits in Grapevine.
Yeah, and they, plus they get property tax out there.
Well, I know the airport, but I didn't know they had oil and gas in Grapevine.
Yeah.
You're kidding. I'll go
Oh,
find
just
some of
a
that
little
here.
separate add-on. I had a chance to meet with Jerry with the bike committee, and he's given the bike committee the same marching orders to increase, to make the bike ride really fun as well. So kudos to Jerry for helping us out already.
Yeah, appreciate the time we got to spend together.
So is there consensus that we want to do this?
I think we want an event, but we certainly have to fine tune
Well, that's his job.
it. Right.
Yeah. So then we need, is there consensus that this is the guy we want to cut a contract to for 125 to 150K?
That's how much he charges.
No,
No.
we have a flat fee.
What's your flat fee?
We offered a discount to do this.
I don't know what it was.
33,000 is our flat fee.
So is that included in the 150 or it's not?
It is. That's why I said, they first came to me and said, we've got an event we can do for 100,000. I said, I'm not your guy. Can't do it. And like I said, that's a discounted rate for us. I think it'd be great to get this event up and going.
We had a great contract like that before, Jerry, and we locked it in for 20 years. You think you can lock it in?
So here's where I'll chime in and say, this isn't on the agenda to speak to actual contracts, so that would come back to you all.
We'll bring back a resolution in the next agenda for consideration with, I think, the points that y'all are discussing.
And again, to answer someone's question asked about time frame, a decision from our experience and just from our business, you got to start making a commitment because of the assets you need to secure to do an event around here in September, because of the state fair. I mean, when you talk about power, stage, lights, sound, everything, the kids area, you got to get these people on the hook. Like we usually work a year in advance on our events. And so that's, and I'm not trying to rush anyone, but I'm trying to give you the lay of the land from our perspective of what it takes to really pull off a successful event.
And there are times that you should not have an event, and obviously the fair is one of them.
Yeah.
Is there any other time?
July, other than the 4th, in August because of the heat and the school. So you look at those type of calendars. But otherwise, no.
Pretty hot in September too, though. I mean, we still get some hot.
Can be.
It can be, but if you look at the past history, October around here, and we have 9 events in October throughout Texas. And 5 of the last 7 years, we've had rainouts of events in October, and it's because of the pattern that we somehow have been in from a weather pattern. And we've had great successful, I mean, I'm not a weather predictor or anything, but just from recent history of 5 to 7 years.
Do you think early or mid-September
Mid.
is better than getting too late, you get too close to?
After Labor Day.
You get too close to.
Yeah, you gotta let the kids get back from school, get settled.
Like a week after, then that'd be the perfect time.
Yeah, a week after, probably 2 weeks after Labor Day to give you some distance from a holiday. You don't want to be too close to
But
it.
further away from the fair and stuff.
Yeah, you can do it before the fair.
Before.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very
I
much.
appreciate your time. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. So staff will come back with a resolution for us next time.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Item 2B. Discuss the appointment of an alternate director to the North Central Texas Housing Finance Corporation as a representative for the city of Duncanville.
So Mayor and Council brought this to you. For the purpose of discussion, and also will say that there is no action that's necessarily required, but there is a North Central Texas Housing Finance Corporation, of which the city of Duncanville is a part of. The counties of Ellis, Hunt, Coffin, Navarro, and Rockwall counties, and Cedar Hill, DeSoto, Duncanville, Lancaster, and Waxahachie. We have a representative on that board, and it's Councilmember Jameson. And we had another member that was on that board, which was our Finance Director, Richard Summerlin. He is not really eligible to be on the board. He is not a resident of the city, of the unit that appoints him. And so he has recently resigned from the board. And given that, I wanted to bring this to the council for you to, one, if you're aware of the board. Secondly, that if you want to appoint an alternate, then give us some direction on how you would want us to do that. There is not a requirement that it be a council member. And there is not a requirement that there be an alternate. I provided you the list of other cities, or the membership of the board, and some cities don't have an alternate. So that was really for the purpose of bringing this forward for y'all to look at. And I'll turn over to Councilmember Jameson to talk more about what the Housing Finance Corporation does and what their purpose is. Don't mind.
Sure. Well, it is, a lot of this is federal, and developers bring projects, and some of the ones that we've worked with is one in Waxahachie, one in, we go through this process, and you talk to the developer, you see what they want to bring, and you go through all of the process of it, but then it goes to the city for them to decide. And Waxahachie didn't vote for it. They didn't want it. Heath didn't want one. And some of these are like for the over 50 apartments, and a certain number of the units have to be for low income. And they get tax credits, and it goes through the same bond process with Hilltop. And now there was one in Kaufman, and it was an old apartment complex, and the citizens were behind it, and they renovated it, and it worked. But so a lot of it, we have meetings and discuss and work on stuff, and the citizens still have to go for it. So.
And you've been to all of them?
Yeah.
So
every one of
do
them.
we, in your opinion, do we need an alternate? That's kind of where the decision
Well,
is, do we need an alternate?
What I decided was if anything ever happened, you know, that, I mean, I'd call Barry or I'd just call somebody on the council and say, can you go? You know.
But without being designated as an official alternate, if I go for you, could I have a vote or I
I
just
think
sit
so,
there?
because you're representing
I
Duncanville.
think when I read the bylaws, I think you have to be appointed as an alternate. to have
Most
a
likely the
vote.
bylaws say you have to be appointed, because then anybody can serve or say, hey, you cover. Most likely the bylaws require.
You know, I've gone to all the meetings. The main thing is that you do live here, and that was the only problem.
How long do these meetings take?
Just depends. It's kind of like hours. Sometimes they're short and sometimes they're not.
And how often do you meet?
Well, you have to have at least like twice a year, but when there's projects that come up, you can be meeting. You know, because you got a project and you've got a developer and he's in, he wants to bring something before you, and then you have an attorney that wants you to agree on something, and
Anybody want to be an alternate?
That's what I was getting ready to ask you. Is there anybody
you
that
have
wants to do
You
that?
have to be interested in. You kind of have to be interested in it.
So those boards can also, housing finance authorities can also do programs that aren't directly with developers too. I don't know what y'all do, but the goal of housing finance authorities is to encourage affordable housing in their jurisdiction. And so a lot of those authorities can also create first-time homebuyer mortgage loan
Well, they already have
programs and all
that. That's a
kinds of
program,
stuff.
and so it's really up to the real estate people to offer it to their
Yeah.
first time.
I think a banker ought to be our alternate.
I saw him hiding behind you.
You're really still trying to do it.
Well, I try to go to all the meetings. I do. I try to go, I mean, I have.
Well,
I've
since
never
you go
missed
to all
one.
of them, I'll do it. Since
I
you
have
go
not
to
missed
all of them, I'll
one.
hold to it.
And it's the same thing with our committees. The only problem is that you've got to have a quorum. And the problems that we have usually are Hunt or Rockwall, or they have to come in,
How many
drive in.
cities are in it? I forgot.
Well, it's about
Five.
7.
7?
Well, it's not just cities, it's Hunt and Rockwall County, and then, because.
5 counties.
Yeah, there's,
What were we gonna say, Don?
And then it might be more of a Julie question, can it be a citizen?
Yeah. Could be anybody.
These corporations are
Actually, it doesn't have to
standalone
be a council.
corporations, just like EDC, so that it doesn't have to be someone from the council.
usually it is someone with the city though, either council or employee, because,
And it depends on what the bylaws say about who can be on the board. So it might, I don't know what their bylaws say, but their bylaws might say it has to be someone on the governing body of
It
the
doesn't
city.
say that.
It just says citizen of.
Yeah, citizen of the unit, or a member of the unit of the.
you have to be a citizen of the city. You don't want somebody voting for something that
Right.
they're not gonna.
It goes back, do you think we need an alternate?
We haven't
In the
needed one so
instance if
far.
something would come up where you can't make it, is it that detrimental to your seat on that board that
Oh,
you wouldn't be there for that
I
particular meeting?
communicate with them, right, well, just like we do here when we talk about we have meetings, you know,
Yeah.
so it's like, well, I can't do it during this. We all do, we all respond and say, this is not a good time for me. And they'll say, well, can you do this, you know, and it's like, yes, I'll do this. Now, if I make a commitment, I'm there, you know.
But
And,
how about we don't do an alternate until we need one?
okay,
That's all I was-
Does that work?
yeah. I haven't had a problem so far, because
Okay.
we say, I can come or I can't. And then we usually make it when everybody's there. We even had a guy from Kaufman, had his knees replaced and was telephoned in, put the telephone on the table.
Dedication.
That's dedication.
Okay, so we won't do one until we find a need for one. Okay, that good? Okay. We are done with those particular items for our briefing session, and we can move into executive session. We are reconvening into open
We'll be
session
10 more minutes.
3.
And
And I'm reading item 1.
number 2.
Item number 2 of executive session, city council shall convene into closed executive session pursuant to section 551.072 of the Texas Government Code, deliberations about real property to deliberate the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property, to wit, real property is generally located west of State Highway 67, south of Interstate 20, east of Cedar Ridge, Santa Fe Road, and north of Daniel Dale Road. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The official timestamp for the convening call to order for the Duncanville City Council on Tuesday, January 7th, 2020 is 7:26. Thank you all for joining us. Our apologies for convening late. We did have to work through some executive session issues. With that, let's see. We will have our invocation by Pastor Jaime Andrade, and he is from the Centro Familiar Cristiano. Pastor, please rise.
Thank you. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you. Thank you for a new year. Thank you for a new opportunity. Today, O Lord, I'm asking you for your wisdom upon each one of our council members, our mayor. Give us the guidance, O Lord, to do what is right for the people, what is good for the city, but more than anything, O Lord, what is right before your eyes. Give us your protection upon our fire department, police department, today more than ever. In the precious name of Jesus, amen.
Pastor, if you wouldn't mind, if you would like to pray in Spanish as well, I would welcome that.
I pledge allegiance.
No, pray.
Oh.
I do the pledges.
Okay.
Play, if you'd like to pray in Spanish.
I'm sorry?
If you would like to pray in Spanish, you're welcome.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Señor, bendice este concilio. Bendice al mayor y a cada uno de los concejales. Bendice, Señor Dios, en este nuevo año, el trabajo que se va a hacer. Por favor, Padre, en el nombre de Jesús. Amén.
Amen. Please join me in the pledges to our flags. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Thank you. Please be seated. The next item on the agenda is the mayor's report. I have a couple items. You know that the next coffee with the mayor is going to be next Wednesday at 8:30 at the Recreation Center, from 8:30 to 9:30. Senior Center, sorry. It's the Senior Center. So anybody who would like to come and just sit down and have coffee and juice and I call them refreshments, but don't come hungry. Welcome to come sit down. We just have a nice informal chat. A question was asked of me if you had to be a member of the rec center and the senior center to come and have coffee with me, and the answer to that is definitely not. No, it's just the time to sit down and have a chat. Also want to tell you that several of us, myself, Mr. Hugman, Mr. Fredrickson, our police chiefs, both of our chiefs from a fire department, our fire department firefighters, our police officers attended a 2-day session on the active shooter executive education, I guess, exercise. Anyway, very, very informative, and it was high level in terms of the response to active shooters by law enforcement, by fire departments, and by elected officials and staff of cities. Very, very educational, and to, I guess, unintentionally use a pun, I was fire hosed by all the information. But I also want to go on record saying that the regional director for emergency management, Tanya Hunter, which does our emergency management for our region down here, she organized this event, and the caliber of individuals that came to make presentations was at the top. We had the senior agent for the FBI. We had a senior agent, field agent from the ATF. We had senior members of staff. We had an individual come in from, where was Shepard from? Galveston, in terms of giving us information. It was absolutely fantastic. And I didn't have an opportunity to commend Tonya personally, but I wanted to go on record. And I know Chief, Chiefs see her pretty frequently. Please express my thanks personally for such an incredible event. There were representatives from, of course, all of Southwest Dallas County were there. I even saw someone from Decatur, Louisville, Colleyville, Frisco. This thing was very widely attended by law enforcement and firefighters and staff throughout North Texas. And that is a credit to Tonya for her organizational ability. So just kudos, strong kudos to her. Okay, that's my mayor's report. Ms. Jamison.
Yes, I didn't get to see everybody at the last meeting, so I hope everyone had a happy holiday. And we want to recognize that Mrs. Nancy Bell is back with us and looking good, and we're so glad that she's feeling better and healthy, and hope that we have a great 2020.
Mr. Cooks.
Yeah, Mayor and Council, and to our listening online citizens. Mayor, first I want to commend you personally for being out in the city and out in the community and all of you do to represent our city positive. And every time I look up and see something online and notice you're there, I know that we're well represented. So thank you for all you do as the mayor of our city.
Thank you.
Then secondly, I want to send my condolences to the Oak Cliff Bible Fellowship family. Sister Loris, Dr. Loris Evans went home to be with the Lord, and I know that many of our citizens attend the Oak Cliff Bible Fellowship, so I wanted them to know that on behalf of the council members that we wanted to send our condolences to Dr. Evans and his family. And then for sure, we also want to announce our Lunch, Laugh, and Learn has returned, and we're going to host it on January the 23rd. From 6:15 to 7:30 at Luby's. This time our subject will be 2020 census, the importance of being counted and what to expect. And Ms. Madeline will be there talking to our guests at Luby's on January the 23rd from 6:15 to 7:30. And I'm encouraging everyone to please come out and get additional information from Ms. Madeline. That concludes my information. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. McBurnett.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to congratulate the Duncanville basketball teams. The Panthers won the Whataburger tournament. The Pantherettes won the Sandra Meadows Classic over the holidays, so congratulations to them. And then, since we're thinking about schools, school zones tomorrow, kids back in school, so be leery going by school zones and stuff. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Vera Cruz.
Thank you, sir. Just want to remind everybody of the Heart of Duncanville 5K, the last Saturday of February, which is the 29th this year. And if you made a New Year's resolution like I did, I'll see you out there. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Oh, one thing I was remiss in mind. I see Ms. Pat Weaver out there. I know that she was involved in the 2-day active shooter thing that we did. I know that she was there at 6 o'clock in the morning till the end, and so she was part of the organizational effort for that. So thank you, Ms. Weaver, for all your time that you invested in that, and CERT as well. Okay, City Manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I would like to ask Chief Brown to come up. He would like to recognize his police officers, and he will make that describe that narrative and then recognize the officers that we have.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for this opportunity to recognize the outstanding work of several of our night shift officers. On September the 10th of 2019, Duncanville police officers responded to an aggravated robbery in progress at 710 West Wheatland Road. 710 West Wheatland Road is the O'Reilly's Auto Parts. The responding officers were provided information from our dispatch center that there was 2 individuals inside of this business establishment with masks on, and each one had an AK-47 type weapon. There was a customer who actually saw these individuals enter the location, and that customer provided this information to our dispatch center, who relayed it to our responding officers. This call was dispatched at 8:14 in the evening, and our police officers arrived at 8:16. We had a 2-minute and 27-second response time. Because of that response time, our officers arrived, and their strategy was exactly as they had been taught and trained. As you know, Mayor, we just attended an active shooter training. This was not an active shooter event. Had it been, the officers would have had no other choice but to enter the location immediately. However, because there was no threat of anyone actively being shot or killed, we did exactly what we should have done by securing the perimeter. The first 2 officers who arrived was able to establish a perimeter. They were able to look inside and verify that there was 2 individuals inside of this location with weapons. Those 2 officers were supported by additional officers that arrived, and we were able to use our training to have that individual exit the building, and he was taken into custody. So I felt it very important to recognize these officers before this governing body. We're very pleased that no one was injured. You can imagine what could have happened with the type of weapons that was available. So thank you each for allowing Mr. Hugman and this governing body to recognize these officers before the council. And so at this time, we would like to present their commendations, and here's how it reads. For excellent teamwork, communication, and coordinated response resulting in the apprehension of an aggravated robbery suspect, the safe rescue of 2 victims who were the employees there, and the recovery of money taken from a safe that the suspects were able to retrieve from the safe. And so at this time, I would like to ask those officers to come down, and we would like to present their commendations.
All right. Thank you, Chief. I would just like to add that the morning after this incident, I tried to pull the report up, but as you can imagine, this report was so convoluted that it was still being worked on. So I then went into our CAD, our computer aided dispatch report that had been generated, that is generated for every call, and I read the comments as officers had arrived on scene, and they were airing comments over the radio. And I've been a police officer for almost 27 years. Made the hair stand up on my back, on my neck. And so these officers did an outstanding job. So Officer Devin Blackmore. Officer Jacob Herring. Sergeant Adrian Tiarina. Officer Brian Lauer. Officer Gregory Seipert.
To them.
I'm sorry, I'd given Andrew Pachaka his award prior to doing that, but Andrew Pachaka was involved as well.
Do you mind if we stand behind him? Could we do that? Would you guys mind if we stood behind you?
No, please do. Please do.
Thank you. Congratulations again. I do want to add that the insignia that are on the shoulders of three of those members, that indicates that they are members of our SWAT team. And our SWAT team provided security for 2 days at the Duncanville High School. So they were outstanding in giving us security and guard. In fact, I was talking to a police, well, it was a department, he was a state trooper, and we were just chatting during the break time, and he said, "Did you look around and see who's here?" And I said, "Well, yeah." I said, "What about it?" He said, "There are more guns in this place than I've ever seen." And it is true, because everybody there that was a law enforcement officer, plainclothed or not, was armed. And it was, so it was comforting to be inside with all of them, knowing that our SWAT team was outside, in case anybody tried to do anything foolish. Okay. Oh, yeah.
Mayor, Council, thank you for letting us take a few minutes to acknowledge that. And I do want to also add that, you know, this is just another example of the professionalism and training that we have, not only in our police department and our fire department, but throughout our organization. And we're very proud of our police department and our fire department, our first responders. But we have a very professional, well-trained organization throughout, and I think this is a very good example of what we do every day for the citizens of Duncanville. Thank you, Mayor, Council.
Thank you, Mr. Ugman. And again, congratulations to our first responders, every single one of them in every respect. Thank you. Okay, item number 2 on our agenda is proclamations and presentations. A proclamation recognizing Martin Luther King Day Jr., January 20th, 2020. Mr. Cooks will make that presentation.
Mr. Hampton Triggs and wife, you can bring your wife down if you like. Okay. Mr. Hampton Triggs is one of our neighbors in District 4. So, Mr. Hampton Triggs, thank you for coming today to our council meeting. Whereas the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who was born on January the 15th, 1929, dedicated his life to the achievement of civil rights and public service. And whereas Dr. King believed in a nation of freedom and justice of all through nonviolent means, and challenged all citizens to help build a more perfect union and live up to the purpose and potential of America. And whereas federal and state legislators has recognized Dr. King's legacy as one of America's outstanding civil rights leaders by creating a federal holiday and marking his birthday. And whereas this federal holiday was signed into law in 1983 and first observed in 1986, making 2020 the 34th anniversary of the nationwide observance of Martin Luther King Jr. federal holiday. And whereas Dr. King's legacy is honored each year on the third Monday in January. Now, therefore, Mayor Barry L. Gordon, Mayor of the City of Duncanville, Texas, do hereby proclaim January the 20th, 2020 as Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day in the City of Duncanville, and urge all the citizens of the City of Duncanville to join me in honoring and remembering Dr. King, values, dedication to make America one nation with equity and justice for all. Thank you very much for accepting the proclamation today.
Thank you. Next item on our agenda is item number 3, citizens input. Pursuant to Section 551.007 of the Texas Government Code, any member of the public has the opportunity to address the City Council concerning any matter of public interest or posted agenda item. However, the act prohibits City Council from deliberating any issues not on the agenda, and we do not discuss those things. And this time limit is 2 minutes. That's been legally imposed by our City Council. And to do so, there are cards and there are no cards.
No cards.
There are no cards. So we will dispense with citizens' input tonight. Thank you very much. Moving on to item number 4, consent agenda. Would the City Secretary please read the consent items?
Item 4A, consider the minutes for the December 17th City Council regular meeting. 4B, consider a resolution appointing election judges for the City of Duncanville and Dallas County for the May 2nd, 2020 general election and authorizing the City Secretary to approve on behalf of the City of Duncanville any changes in the list of recommended election judges which may become necessary because of the inability to serve of any of the persons named in Exhibit A. 4C, consider a resolution authorizing approval of an economic development performance agreement for a design incentive sign grant by the DCEDC to Diane Clark, owner of Lady Love Tax Service, in an amount up to 70% of the actual costs, not to exceed $1,431.86, to replace 2 business signs located at 261 West Camp Wisdom Road, Duncanville Road. 4D, consider a resolution authorizing the purchase of a new aerial bucket truck and chassis from Rockdale Country Ford LLC for the unit amount bid through the Local Government Purchasing Cooperative by Board Contract Number 601-19 for a total expenditure amount of $112,180,000.
Thank you. The chair will entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion approved. Is there a second? We have a motion approved and a second. Please vote. There we go. Thank you. Motion is approved unanimously. Item number 5, items for individual consideration. We have none. And we don't have any items, action taken as a result of executive session either. So moving on to item number 6, staff and board reports. Item number 5A, receive the monthly financial report as of November 30th, 2019. Mr. Summerlin.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. So as of November 30th, we should have a benchmark of about 16.7% of our revenue and expenditure budgets, since this is the second month in the new fiscal year. Our general fund ending unreserved fund balance was $7.4 million, which is 84 days of operations, and that's about 9 days or $757,000 in excess of the benchmark 75-day reserve. Keep in mind that we do, this is the time of year when we're receiving the majority of our revenues, which are property taxes being paid, primarily coming in through the month of December and January. So in future months, you'll see those revenues increase dramatically. Property taxes, of course, are due by the end of January. And then our overall general fund expenditures are at about 6% of the budget, and operating expenditures are at 13% of the budget. If we look at the graph of our general fund revenues, the pink line would be the assumption that revenues are earned equally over incrementally over the course of the year, so that that has just a benchmark there that you can look at. The blue line on the graph is our previous 3-year average for revenues, and then the short red line down the lower left maps out the first 2 months of the year. So you can see that we're running a little bit behind on revenue, but that's not anything to be concerned about, because we're about to come into our time of year where those revenues increase dramatically. If we laser out our property taxes, you can see that it's the same thing, same general pattern as you have on the overall revenues, because that is the primary revenue. And then if you look at our sales tax, of course, we're 2 months in arrears from receiving our sales tax from the state. So the first 2 months in the fiscal year, there's nothing for us to report. And then when we receive the December financial, we'll have the first month of sales tax revenue to report. And then looking at our expenditures, you can see that we are just running just a little bit below that straight line budget or that 3-year average. The utility fund ending run reserve fund balance is $3.5 million at the end of November, which represents 66 days of operations. Our utility and solid waste revenues, of course, have 1 month delay because of the way that we bill. And then the sanitation fund has an ending fund balance of $592,000. That's approximately 53 days of operations. Looking at our revenues, they tend to follow along a pattern where utility fund revenues are rather weak during the fall and winter months, and then of course increase. You see that 3-year average typically taking a jump in the late spring, March, April, May, June, July, and on into the hotter months where we use more water. Our expenditures, they're mapped out here the same as I described previously for the general fund. And you can see that those are just running right along incrementally like they should. Our one-time projects at November 30th, you can see that, excuse me, you can see that there are quite a few projects that we have, and we don't have at this point in time any of these projects that are completed, so they're a work in process. Any questions?
I have one question. On the sanitation fund, I know that in order for the city to get caught back up on the hiccup we had with picking up bulk waste, bulk stuff, did we have any expenditures on that, or did the Republic pick that up, or was it shared expense? Do you happen to know?
We will incur that, and that will be more reflected into the January financial report when we get to that.
Okay, are we sharing that expense, or do you just mechanically not having the dollar amount? Then are we bearing 100% of that, or is there some of that being borne by Republic? Do you know?
So Republic began the new bulk pickup on December 1st. Our billing will not catch up to that though until January. Is that correct, Richard? So our utility bill revenues for us to implement the change in that rate structure to the customers will not be reflective until January. So yes, there will be some, they will be billing us at that higher amount starting December 1st. We won't actually realize revenues until January though. So there will be some amount in there that it will be
essentially
unrealized.
Eating away at our fund balance.
Correct. It'll eat at the fund balance a little.
Okay.
We don't know the amount right now.
All right, good. Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Moving on to item number 6B, receive the fire department quarterly report. Chief Rhodey.
Good evening, council, mayor, city manager. I want to thank y'all for allowing us to come and present our first quarter fire department report. I want to start off talking about staffing. We've got 2 vacancies in the fire department that we were working real hard to try to fill those vacancies so we can have a full staff. We held a civil service entrance exam on December the 7th, and we have interviews scheduled off of that list to try to fill those 2 vacancies on January the 14th of this year. We also, I currently have 3 paramedics that are 3 firefighters actually, that are going to El Centro to get certified to be a paramedic. They should be back with us on after January the 10th. So that'll add 3 more staff to my staffing that we can use to staff our equipment. And then I got 2 of our firefighter EMTs that will be going to paramedic school on January the 21st. We try to keep up with that paramedic school to keep them trained. We also, since Mike Truesdale, who used to be our former fire marshal, he retired back in February, and we've been working to replace his position. And we just recently got everything, our ducks in a row, and wound up promoting Steve Wakeland on November the 18th of 2019. We also, with Steve Wakeland being promoted, that opened up a engineer position, and we'll go ahead and we did a promotional exam on December 13th of 2019, and we're just waiting on our Civil Service Commission to certify that list so we can go ahead and promote somebody to fill that engineer's position. With a retirement, we're expecting one of our battalion chiefs to retire sometime the beginning of this year, and that means we'll have to have a promotional exam. So we have that scheduled for the battalion chief on February 21st of this year. And then with that position being promoted, we'll have a captain's promotional position that'll be open, and we're going to give that exam on February the 28th. Some of our accomplishments, we participated in the National Night Out with our Fire Prevention Division. They handed out all kinds of educational material on fire prevention. And we also gave out 53 smoke alarms to the citizens here in Duncanville that requested a fire alarm. So we think that's pretty good, being able to hand out that many fire alarms to our needy in the community. And then our EMS director, Chief Ryan, he's been working closely with Public Works to teach them first aid and CPR, and he did that back on October the 16th of 2019. And then Chief Ryan and myself, we attended the Texas EMS conference that was held in Fort Worth this year on November the 24th through the 27th. That's a very important conference for our EMS division, and that it updates our laws that have been mandated from the federal and state side, such as your HIPAA laws, your CMS, or your Medicaid and Medicare. So it's good to keep up with those mandates that they come out with. The fire department also participated with Tanya. She was instrumental in doing our action plan for the parade. She worked closely with Bart Stevenson and Tim Hamilton to make sure we had a very successful event. We were all out there, and all you could see was smiles, so I know that was a very successful event. Everybody was very happy. It was good to see everybody happy in the city at the parade. Our emergency management training, again, Tanya Hunter's been very, very busy, and she works with our staff. Monthly, we have a required EOC training, or emergency management training, and she, back in October for Duncanville, Cedar Hill, Lancaster, and DeSoto, we all had an EOC overview, which reviewed our parts that we would hold during an emergency event here in Duncanville. And she also did a Stop the Bleed training back on October the 30th with Lancaster, which is a very important training. She delivered a severe weather tornado tabletop exercise to Crescent Place Assisted Living back on October the 23rd. So as you can tell, she's been very busy. Delivered a severe weather and power outage tabletop exercise to the Elam Hospice Agency that provides services to our best Southwest cities on October 22nd of 2019. And then we did a regional winter weather preparedness for Duncanville, Cedar Hill, DeSoto, and Duncanville, and Lancaster on November the 14th. And we had some partners come in, National Weather Service, TxDOT, Dallas County, utility partners such as Atmos and Encore for electric delivery. And it was good that we contacted or we update all of our contacts to make sure if we have any type of emergency in Duncanville that we have the proper contacts and we know who we need to contact to be able to get resolution to any type of ice problems that we have in our community. We also, we also conducted a prescribed burn with the Texas Parks and Wildlife and the Texas Forest Service and Cedar Hill Fire Department at Cedar Hill State Park on November the 18th and 19th of 2019 to mitigate the threat of wildland fire in this area. As all y'all are probably familiar on the news with Australia, the problems that they have with their drought, that's what we're trying to eliminate, is try to burn off that brush so that we don't have a fire that would get out of control on us. We also delivered a severe weather tornado tabletop exercise to the Crescent Place Assisted Living back on October 23rd, 2019. And we delivered a severe weather and hazardous materials release tabletop exercise to the Texas Home Health Agency in DeSoto that provides services to the greater Best Southwest cities on December the 5th. Some of our performance measures, we had calls for service, 1,898 calls during that quarter. The fire-related calls for service were 37. We had 3 building fires. Other related calls for service was 502. And then, of course, our major call for services, our EMS, we had 1,346 of those calls. And then we completed business inspections out in the community of 211 business inspections. And that's the end of my report. If anybody has any questions.
Just a comment, excuse me, reading this and seeing you reminded me of something that was a common thread of the presentations that we were given over the past 2 days in terms of lessons learned from active shooter instances around our country. And it's communication problems between fire and police and all responding agencies. My comment relating to that is that City Council and citizens will recall that we have allocated in our budget, was it over about $1 million in terms of bringing our communications in line with what's going on in the industry. What's the what is it? P25. The P25 compliance in terms of communications, so that there's not going to be that problem. So our police and our fire throughout the entire, I guess it's Dallas County, whenever there's an incident, hopefully we don't have an active shooter incident, but any kind of major incident, we are not going to have a communication problem. So the budget that we have set aside for that is actually proactive, being from what I heard today, because every one of those people that said this is what happened in El Paso, this is just what happened in the Naval Yard, this is what happened in Washington D.C., this is what happened at Shady Hook. All of those active shooter incidents, the main problem that they brought up was communication. That the first responding units could not communicate with each other, and there was total chaos and confusion. So I think of what we are doing to be proactive and setting aside that $1 million to be compliant with this type of communication is setting the future for ourselves to not have those kinds of problems. And I appreciate our staff and fire and police working together to make that happen. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor.
Any other comments for Chief Rhodey? No, seeing none. Thank you, Chief. That brings us to the end. So we are adjourned at 8:05. Thank you.